Alright, welcome back. So it's been quite a while since I've done a build video. My last build video I think was for Thoth when he came out maybe like a month or so, probably more than a month. So it's been a while since I've done a build video, so I just want to go ahead and do one. And this one is a little unusual. I've already done a normal KUMBHA build some time ago in the past. This one is more of my own personal build for him, but it's if I'm going into more of a damage build. It's not like a pure mage build, it's a good mix between both protections and HP and having a lot of, well maybe not a lot, but it has a decent amount of magical power. Because I play KUMBHA a lot of people ask me who's my favorite god, and I'll definitely have to lead into KUMBHA. Now real quickly, some might ask me how do I level up my abilities for KUMBHA. Now I level my abilities the same way, it doesn't really matter what game mode I play. It might change if I was to play Conquest, but I'm not a Conquest player. But my abilities, I just max out my 1 first. I really enjoy the massive amount of damage it does. It always catches people off guard if they get hit with the flying minion damage especially. And then once you have about 3 points into it, if you are in the lane by yourself and nobody's around you and you just want to go ahead and clear the wave so you can go back and finish the item, his throwback can actually just clear the entire minion wave. Maybe not the big minion, so you know, throw in some auto attacks or whatever, but it does a lot of damage. So after I max out my 1, I go ahead and max out my 3, my ultimate, every single time that I can get a point into it, and the last thing I level up is my 2. Some might prioritize their 2 over their 3. Me personally, I just like to level up my 3 over my 2, just kind of extend the mez and slow duration. You could argue that your Mighty-On might get interrupted a lot, so you might not want to put points into it. But as you put points into it, it scales a lot of the stats, the mez, the slow, and the attack speed debuff. Now with the 2, the Groggy Strike, it has a really long wind-up time, so sometimes even your Groggy Strike will get interrupted, or it's so predictable, and you know, they see it coming, they can just dash away from it, and you just end up hitting nothing. So enough about his abilities, let's get into actually building for KUMBHA. Now, this build I'm about to go into, I don't use it if I was to play Conquest. I don't play Conquest at all, and I wouldn't really recommend using this build in Conquest or any sorts of ranked. No 1v1 duels or anything like this. This build I go into if I have a early lead or if I have another frontliner with me that can do the majority of the initiation. So if I'm paired up with an Ares or maybe like a really aggressive warrior or something like that, then I'll go ahead and have fun with a build like this. So that's very important to know. This build probably will not work in Conquest, mostly just game modes like Arena, Clash, maybe Assault, and perhaps even Siege. So to start off the build, I have 2 different starts. Sometimes it kind of depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I'll go into Mark of the Vanguard as my starter item, just looking for the passive really. So with Mark of the Vanguard and KUMBHA, sometimes if you really want to utilize your throwback, you have to get pretty close up to the minions, and sometimes you might start taking minion damage, and a lot of it, especially for the early. And Mark of the Vanguard can help you just kind of lower that overall damage, and that way you can just play a little bit more aggressive without getting punished too hard from the early game minions. Because if you do know, if you go and dive the enemy team and they have like their minions there, you're going to be taking a lot of damage. So sometimes I go into the Mark of the Vanguard, sometimes I'll just go straight into boots. It kind of depends on how I'm just feeling. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and go into the Shoes of Magi, looking for that little bit extra magical power and especially that magical penetration. Now from here, there's 2 different items that I could go into. It really, again, it kind of depends on how I'm feeling. What I used to do if I'm looking for damage on KUMBHA, I'll go into the Dicey Plate Helmet right after Pin Boots. Reason why, it's a very, very cheap item, and it gives you that nice 15 magical penetration. So if you go ahead and pick this up, I mean, of course the other stats are good too. It's a really good like early game item. I wouldn't keep this for the late game. I'd probably sell this for another item like Celestial Legion Helmet. But Dicey Plate Helmet, really strong early game item. So with this little bit of magical power and that physical protection, it's just enough so you can be just a little bit tankier. But this pin matched up with the pin boots, that's a lot of penetration. You have 25 flat penetration for the early game. That is when it's at its best, and you'll be doing a lot of damage. But what I've been doing lately is just not going into Dicey Plate Helmet at all, and just straight up going into Celestial Legion Helmet. Now you might ask why going into it. It kind of varies on if you're fighting people with crit or whatever, right? I don't really care about the passive at all. It's a very cheap item, only 2,400. That's basically the price of a Chronos Pendant. Yeah, it's the same price as a Chronos Pendant, and you have 80 physical protection. That's a lot. It used to be 90. 90 was so good that they had to nerf it somewhat recently. They took 10 physical protection off because they noticed it just had really good stats. You know, who cares about the passive? So I still go into it. 80 physical protection, that's like more than the breastplate of valor, and 60 magical power, which is, again, that's a lot. That's as much as an obsidian shard. So yeah, I mean, what you can do is go Dynasty Plate Helmet for the early, complete most of your build or the entire build, and go back and sell it for Celestial Legion Helmet. Or what I've been doing lately is just going straight into it, and that way I can have a decent amount of physical protection and, again, that magical power. So the next item after I pick up the Legion Helmet, I actually just go straight into the Void Stone. Again, I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, this is not a pure mage build. This is more of a combination of both magical power, doing a decent amount of burst damage, and still being quite a bit tanky. So I do go into Void Stone. The only problem with going into Legion Helmet into Void Stone, you're going quite a while without HP. So again, I think I talked about this earlier. I only really run this build if I have a early lead. So that way I'm just kind of depending on my level advantage for my HP. Being a Guardian, you gain anywhere from 80 to 100 HP as, you know, per level. So that's where my HP is going in into the next item. But yeah, so far if we go into the Shoes of Magi, a Legion Helmet, and Void Stone, we have a decent amount of both physical and magic protection to go along with our protection that we gain per level. And also what's cool is the Void Stone Aura effect that also acts as just like an extra bit of penetration. So if you actually were to go into Dynasty Plate Helmet and Void Stone, you have a lot of protection strategies overall. But again, I've been going to straight Legion Helmet for myself. Now after Void Stone, I still go into a health item regardless if I have a level lead or not. And there's only 2 health items I really go into. I don't pick up, you know, both of them. It's just either one or the other. One of them is Winged Blade if the situation calls for it, like if the enemy team has a lot of slows and it's really preventing me from, you know, landing my groggy strikes. Since it takes so long to land, they can just kind of slow you, and that kind of prevents you from doing your thing. And also, just for the 300 health for 1850 gold is really, really good. And of course, all the other stats are great. Maybe not so much attack speed. It could probably help you get like the last hit to, you know, finish a kill off or whatever. But it's either Winged Blade or more than likely actually go into Ethereal Staff. Now for Warlock Sash, it's 100 stacks. I'm not really trying to build stacks on KUMBHA. I'm just really trying to use my one to actually just do damage, maybe hit like one big minion into a god or whatever. And I mostly like to be nice and let my, you know, my mages build their Warlock Sash, or the hunters build their Devo or Transcendence or whatever. So it's either just Winged Blade or Ethereal Staff. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and go to Ethereal Staff. Now the item slot after Ethereal Staff, it's normally some type of cooldown reduction item, and it's one of 2 items. For one, if you want to get CDR just as soon as possible, I go straight into Breastplate of Valor, and then go into my last item, and then I can actually go back and sell Breastplate of Valor for Mantle of Discord. It's almost like the same item, except instead of having just physical protection, you now have both physical and magic protection. You do lose out on the bit of mana, not a big deal, and you also lose out on 5% CDR, which again, not a big deal. You are trading that for a 60 magical protection, which can help you out a lot, and the passive from Mantle can save your life. It can be really great. Or if you can't afford it, you can just go Mantle Discord just right away and avoid, you know, going to, you know, 2 items and then going back and selling Breastplate for Mantle. So yeah, for now, let's go into Breastplate. Just know that you can go back and sell this later and go Mantle, or just go Mantle right away. Now the last item slot, regardless if I went Mantle or Breastplate of Valor, is normally always Soul Reaver. Now this build is a little expensive. So if you do go into Mantle of Discord and like Ethereal Staff, like really expensive items, and then Soul Reaver, it could take a little while to build. That's why I said like this build I only really kind of go into if I have a decent lead, or maybe if the match goes long enough, you can just build it regardless. But yeah, Soul Reaver, it works really well with the massive amount of burst damage, well, single target burst damage that KUMBHA can output between his ulti and 1. So what I like to do with the build like this, you know, it normally looks like something like this. If you played KUMBHA before, you probably have already been doing this for a while. But you know, you can go ahead and ulti. You can kind of time your 1. As soon as they land, boom, you can do something like that for an instant, just boom, burst damage. Or you can ulti them up first, charge your 2. As soon as they land, boom, root them. The only thing about rooting somebody is that they're not truly rooted. If they have some type of jump or escape or dash or whatever, even if they're rooted, they can still dash away. Some might think it's a little silly, like me. I think it's a little silly that, you know, if you're rooted, you're not truly rooted. But if they already use their escape first, and then you ulti them, and then you use your 2, after you can use your 2, you can just pair that up with a nice 1 for just a lot of damage. So you can do something like that. And that is pretty much the entire build. Again, if you can, Mantle of Discord would be the better bet than Breastplate of Valor. Of course, if you can build it. And then, of course, this is just the end build. If you want to, you can go back and sell Magi's Blessing, or not Magi's Blessing. Shoes of Magi. You can go back and sell the pinned boots and go into the CDR boots. CDR boots might be, I think overall, it's a better boot to go into for the late game, where there's a lot of team fights and things like that. The flat 10 magical penetration doesn't really scale the best into the late game. Majority of the gods, as they level up, they gain more and more magical protection. The only thing is, majority of the mages, they stay at 30 flat magical protection throughout the entire game. Of course, some mages, they do actually scale up. But yeah, I can, go back, sell pin boots for CDR boots. And that way, if you have, Mantle or Breastplate of Valor, you can kind of pair that up with the Shoes of Focus boots. And then, as you level up your ultimate and it's max level, look at this, 52 seconds on that really high single target burst damage ulti. I mean, that's just great. So that pretty much wraps up the entire build. Again, it's not a pure mage build. We still have a decent amount of protection and, of course, power. We have 342 magical power, and we have a lot of protections for both physical and magical, which is great. And the HP is almost hitting 3k. Not too bad. And of course, it's not including if you have the luxury of going into the 500 magical potion. Then it looks like more like this, 400. Now I might be wondering, what about just overall penetration? What do you do about that? Well, I'm not really looking to burst any tanky targets since I know I have no penetration. So for majority of the game, you're really depending on your pen boots and your void stone for just shredding the protections, and that way you can allow, have just a little bit more of a burst damage. Also for the early to mid game, if you're running this type of start, that's a lot of protections, and this will last you until the later stages of the game, like the mid-late and just the late game in general. How could you actually fit a decent penetration item in here? I'm not really sure how would you fit that in. If you want something like an obsidian shard, so that way you have a wider range of targets to go after. So, if you want to go after somebody a little bit tankier or a warrior, you might fit that in, maybe just sell void stone for that. And instead of having that 60 magic protection there, you can have that on your mantle or whatever. Sadly, you just can't really fit everything in there. Maybe instead of Slow Reaver, you can go to the Obsidian Shard. I'm not really sure, but regardless, just choose your targets wisely, and you don't really need that Obsidian Shard. Just go after the squishy mages, the assassins, the hunters, or whatever. Just choose your targets wisely, and you should be fine. Again, it's just his base scalings on his abilities it's just really, really strong. So, now for relics, I almost skipped the relics. If I can, I really love going into Sunder. Sunder mixed with going into a, pin boots. If you go into a Sunder, Dynasty Plate Helm, if you go into this type of start, you're doing a lot of damage. A lot of damage. And Sunder can also help you out just, finishing off targets. And it also actually shreds their protections, right? The hit gods protections and attack speed are reduced by 30%. So you can get some percentage base protection shred there. But majority of the time, if I need to, I will still go into more of a supportive relic like Sprint, Shell. Blink can be really great on chasing down people. You can blink ulti, catch somebody off guard, you do whatever. But Sunder, if you can get it, I highly recommend it. It's definitely a lot of fun. But yeah, enough rambling for me. Now this build, this is not just for KUMBHA. You can apply this to majority of the Guardians, and you should be pretty good. Maybe some other Guardians, maybe some other items might be better or worse. But yeah, this is not just a KUMBHA, bruiser or hybrid build, whatever you want to call it. You can apply this to other Guardians if you want to. But yeah, that's it for me. Hopefully it was helpful. It might have been a little bit longer of a video than normal. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.